Here I am, all my intentions, all my obsessions, I want to lay them all down in your hands. Only your love is vital, though I'm not entitled. God, you don't need me, but somehow you want me. Oh, how you love me. Somehow that frees me to take my hands off of my life and the way it should go. Oh, God, you don't need me, but somehow you want me. Oh, how you love me. Somehow that frees me to open my hands up. Control, I give you control. I've had plans shattered and broken, things I have hoped in fall through my hands. You have plans to redeem and restore me. You're behind and before me. Lord, help me believe. God, you don't need me, but somehow you want me. Oh, how you love me. Somehow that frees me to take my hands off of my life and the way it should go. But somehow you want me. Oh, how you love me. Somehow that frees me to open my hands up and give you control. Oh, God, you don't need me, but somehow you want me. Oh, how you love me. Somehow that frees me to take my hands off of my life and the way it should go. Oh, God, you don't need me, but somehow you want me. Oh, how you love me. Somehow that frees me to open my hands up and give you control. I give you control.
Well, good morning. Can you hear me? Do you want to hear me in the back? Okay. Man, it is such an honor to be here. I love this congregation. And I tell you, I love the youth group. These guys are great. I mean, they are engaged and they are involved in Bible class. It's a real joy to be with you guys, so thank you all very much. Now, I will tell you that I actually began class this morning with them doing the same exercise and brain teaser that I did the last time I was here. And none of the people who heard it before could figure it out again this time either. That is an indictment on the teacher, not on the student. I want you to know that very, very well. But they're such a great group. I really enjoyed my time with them. And man, we love students that go from Pleasant Ridge to Oklahoma Christian. Such an honor to see Autumn this morning and give her a hug. I tell you, Darla and I, we attend the Memorial Road Church of Christ. When I'm not out preaching someplace, we are there, and we go to the college class. Autumn is always there, and it's a real blessing for us to get a chance to see her. And maybe above all things, I want to thank this congregation. I was so worried that Mike Walker was going to introduce me this morning. What a blessing to not have that happen, okay? Although my prayer is he doesn't have the closing prayer. That would be, that could be bad for me as well. Hey, for those of you who are or have family members that are veterans and have served our country, we're coming up on the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and I just want to say God bless you and thank you. My dad was a naval aviator, and so I know the things often that military families go through. So my greatest thanks and appreciation to you all. I want to talk about the lies of loneliness, because I think the devil wants us to be alone and lonely. Okay, 3 stories from my past, because maybe you will share some of these experiences. Sometimes there is a time of day when you are most lonely. When I was a college student, it was the summer of my senior year, before my senior year, and I decided I needed to get from Tahlequah to Seattle, Washington. Tahlequah is a small town in northeastern Oklahoma. I looked and saw that it would cost me $250 to fly from Tulsa to Seattle, but I could take the Trailways bus line for $99. So I went to the Tahlequah bus terminal, which actually was a bus terminal 5 minutes during the day. It was also a hair salon and a diner the rest of the time. My then girlfriend, who is now my wife, and my mom and dad went to see me off. They couldn't believe I was taking Trailways. I got on that Trailways bus, and 62 hours later, I was in Seattle, Washington. Brothers and sisters, I saved $2.43 an hour by riding Trailways, and it was not worth it. 2 solid nights I was on that bus, and I would sit there and think, these are the strangest people I have ever been around. Who are they? Who am I? I was so lonely during those nights. Sometimes we're lonely during a particular time, but sometimes we can feel alone when we're in the midst of lots and lots of people. So, we have a professional basketball team in Oklahoma City, and I want to just give honor to the Dallas Mavericks, okay, because you guys knocked us out of the playoffs, but we're proud of our Oklahoma City Thunder. And Oklahoma City Thunder might be one, I think it's the only professional team in the 4 major sports, football, basketball, baseball, and hockey, that actually has a pre-game prayer, invocation, on center court before all the games. It's pretty cool. I've had a chance to lead probably 8 or 9 of those over the years. One year, I was invited to lead 2 in the same season about 2 weeks apart. Well, as I was getting ready for the second prayer, it was kind of a problem, because now there are some guidelines. The prayer lasts like 20 seconds, so you got to get everything in that 20 seconds that you want to get in. But I did not want to pray the same thing the second time, because I knew the 17,000 people there would remember exactly what I had prayed 2 weeks before. And I didn't want to be viewed as a one-prayer pony, okay? So and by the way, I never took notes. I mean, I wanted it to be a Church of Christ prayer, right? So that it, to kind of set that good example. And so there I am on center court. We got the Thunder lined up here, the bad guys lined up here. The people singing the national anthem were right behind me. The whole crowd stands up. The announcer announces my name. All the men take their hats off. There are cameras in front of me. The lights go down. The spotlight is on me. I'm standing there with a microphone. Have you ever walked into a room and thought, what am I doing here? Well, that's how I felt, except 17,000 people were watching me. I went totally blank. I could not remember what my 20-second prayer was going to be. Well, I mean, in nanoseconds, my mind is flipping through my mental Rolodex of prayers, and the only one that I could think of was the one that Mom taught me 60 years ago. Now I lay me down to sleep. But I knew that was not going to be the right one, so I mumbled out another prayer and everything was fine. But sometimes you feel very alone when you're with lots and lots of people. And here's the third time that I felt very lonely. And maybe you felt this way too. When you feel that someone is against you, when there is a difficult confrontational time, you can feel very alone. So about 2 weeks before the pandemic hit, there was something that happened at my workplace. And it was not a good thing, and it hit the local news, the national news, and even the international news. Let me tell you, anybody who says all PR is good PR, I will tell you that is not the case. Well, I the next Monday made my way to a high school where I could apologize to the students and the family members what happened. On my way there, my PR director is telling me, now, John, whatever you do, do not talk to the press. You go in, you talk to the students and the community, answer their questions, and then you leave. And that's really good advice. So I pull up into the parking lot, and there's one long road in. As I'm driving down that one long road, I realize, hey, there are 2 local TV station trucks there. Well, that's a coincidence. I'm kind of naive about that. I park my car, remembering the words of my PR director, don't talk to the media. I get out of my car, I'm walking toward the front door, and 2 cameramen and 2 news reporters are making a beeline, and they have gotten right between me and the front doors of the school. And the other thing that goes through my mind is, have you seen on TV when someone has just been federally indicted and they're walking into the courthouse and they are keeping their head down, or they're wearing a mask over their face, or they don't want to, that's not a good look. So I decided I was going to have to stop and I was going to have to talk to these reporters. Otherwise, it just wouldn't look right. And so I did. And as they began asking me questions, all I could think of was, I should probably pray, now I lay me down to sleep, right at this moment. Well, it turned out okay. But the reality is, sometimes there's a time of day, or even in a group of people, or when we feel the world is arrayed against us, that we really get lonely. I will tell you, I think the devil wants us alone and lonely. Because I think when we are alone and lonely, we are the weakest and we are the most vulnerable to him. So 3 lessons and then 2 stories, and the lesson is yours. Here is lesson number 1. Maybe I should say lie number 1. I think the devil tells us that sometimes we have to feel, I can do this all by myself, or maybe even more so, I have to do this all by myself. In Exodus chapter 17 and chapter 18, we've got 2 great stories about Moses being told just the opposite. Now, think about what has happened to the Israelites. They finally have been released from slavery. They came out of Egypt, and they didn't come out poor. They came out pretty wealthy because the Egyptians gave them whatever they wanted. And as they head out into freedom, all of a sudden they realize they're being chased by the Pharaoh and his army. And they win a great victory when they go across the Red Sea and the opposing army does not. And then they run into a place where they begin to complain because they're thirsty and there's nothing to drink. And they find some bitter water, but God then has Moses throw some sticks in the water and it becomes sweet, and they have a great victory there. And then they begin to complain because, man, I'm hungry. We could have stayed back in the good old days, in the good old place where back in Egypt we had our own fires and we had plenty of food to eat. And God provided manna in the morning and quail at night, and everything was great once again. And then they got thirsty again and began to complain again. You've brought us out here, Moses, in the desert just to die of thirst. And God had Moses strike the rock, and out came water, and everything was good. Every time they had a problem, God took care of them. But in Exodus 17, they have a brand new problem. That brand new problem is they are attacked by an army. They actually are attacked. The Amalekites have met them at Rephidim, and they are sending their army against the Israelites. Now, the Israelites are a brand new group of people. They have been slaves. They don't have military knowledge or strategy or tactics. They don't have weapons either. And Moses says to Joshua, choose some men and go out and fight the Amalekites. I'll go up on the top of this hill, and I'll take the staff of God with me. And the next morning, Moses goes to the top of that hill. But he doesn't go alone. He takes his brother Aaron and a fellow named Hur, H-U-R. That might very well be his brother-in-law. And they go up on this hill, and as they overlook the battle, as long as Moses has his hands up, the Israelites prevail. But I could ask all of you to raise your hands and see how long during my sermon you would be able to keep them up. And then I could say, while your hands are up, I'll go shorter, but if you drop your hands, I'm going to go longer. And that would put you into great conflict, I'm sure. But Moses couldn't keep his hands up very long. He got tired, and as he dropped his hands, then the Amalekites began to prevail. So Aaron and Hur push a rock up, and Moses sits on the rock, and then Aaron and Hur get on either side, and they hold Moses' arms up. And he kept his arms up until sunset, and the Israelites under Joshua prevailed against the Amalekites. Moses could not have done it alone. And if he didn't get that message, the next chapter, God gives him the message again. So in Exodus chapter 18, Moses is visited by Jethro, his father-in-law. He's the priest of Midian. He brings Moses' wife and his 2 sons with him. And Jethro has heard about the exploits of Jehovah taking care of his people, the Israelites. But when he gets with Moses, he hears more and more detail. And he says, there is no God as great as Jehovah. And he sacrifices to Jehovah. And that night he has a big feast for the leaders of Israel. The next morning, Moses gets up and goes to work. And what he does is he gets up, he goes into the middle of the people, and he sits down, and all day long he hears the disputes of the nation of Israel. People bring their problems to him. And Jethro watches this and says, what are you doing, Moses? Why are you going and sitting amongst the people all day long? This is going to wear you out, and this is going to wear the people out. What you're doing is not a good thing. And Moses says, but I have to be there to settle the disputes of the people and tell them what God's will is. And Jethro says, don't do it like that. Go and find some men and appoint them over 1,000, over 100, over 50, over 10, men who fear God and people who hate illegal gain, and put them in front of the people to decide things. Now, they can decide the minor things. You need to be the representative of the people to God. You need to tell the people what God wants, and on the really big issues, you can take those to God. But this way, you won't wear yourself out, and you won't wear the people out. And Moses did what Jethro suggested as a good son-in-law, and then as a good father-in-law, Jethro left. Moses could not do it alone. A second lie I think that the devil wants us to believe is that there's nobody else on our side. We are it. We are alone in whatever this battle is. 2 Kings chapter 6, the king of Aram is besetting the nation of Israel. In fact, he is setting up camp in various places so he can ambush the Israelites. He says, let's go to this place and set up camp. But then the servant of God, Elisha, tells the king, hey, this is where the enemy is. The king verifies that, and the Israelites avoid that area. And the king of Aram moves and moves again and gets fed up because the Israelites always know where he and his army is going to be. And so he calls all of his officers in and says, who's the traitor among us? Who is telling the king of Israel where we're going to be? And one of his brave officers steps forward and says, King, it's not any of us, it's the man of God. It's Elisha. So the king of Aram has a really good plan. He says, somebody tell me where this man of God is, and we will capture him. Somebody comes back and says he's in a village. It's called Dothan. And so immediately that night, the king of Aram sends chariots and horsemen and soldiers to surround Dothan. Early the next morning, the servant of Elisha wakes up, he goes outside, and he sees the enemy all around him. He goes back in to Elisha and says, my Lord, what are we going to do? The enemy is all around us. And Elisha says, those who are for us, servant, are far more than those who are against us. And then he prays that his servant's eyes will be opened. And the servant goes back outside and he sees the chariots of God and flaming horsemen and chariots all around them. And he understands that they are not alone. We think we're alone, brothers and sisters, but we are not. Let me tell you the end of the story, because those enemies from Aram still want to capture the servant of God. And so the servant of God, Elisha, goes out. They begin to come toward him, and Elisha prays a second time. He says, God, please blind these men. And just like that, they can't see. And then Elisha goes to them and say, hey guys, you all are in the wrong city and you're on the wrong road. But if you follow me, I'll take you to the man you're looking for. And I guess that's really true, because if they were looking for him, they couldn't see him now. So Elisha took them all to Samaria. Well, it so happened that the king of Israel was in Samaria with a much larger army. He leads the enemy into town, and then Elisha prays that their eyes are opened, and they realize they are surrounded by the army of Israel. And the king of Israel says, my father, talking to Elisha, shall I kill them? Shall I kill them now? And it's very interesting what Elisha says. He says, no, you wouldn't kill those that you had captured in battle. So let's do this. Let's feed them and give them plenty to drink and treat them right. And so they throw a party for this enemy army. And then after they have finished feasting, the Arameans leave and go back to the king of Aram, and the battles between the two countries are a thing of the past. Sometimes maybe treating somebody differently and better is the way. But the point is, when you feel like there is nobody on your side, the reality is that God is on your side, and he has a lot of people that are there with him for you. Here's the third lie that I think the devil wants us to believe about loneliness and being alone, and that is this thing that you are facing, this issue, no one else has ever faced it. You're the first in history of humankind to have this particular problem. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, what has happened will happen again. What has been done will be done again, for there is nothing new under the sun. One of my favorite passages from the New Testament, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. No temptation or test that you're facing is unique to you. It's happened to others. And God is faithful. He will not allow you to be tempted or tried beyond what you can bear, and he will provide a way out for you. When you're lonely and alone, God will provide a way out. So what is it that we should do? Well, a couple of things. One is we need to realize that the greatest antidote to loneliness and being alone is being with fellow believers. You got to be with people. Don't think, hey, what I need right now is to go binge watch Netflix, or I need to go to the all-you-can-eat buffet because I'll feel better about that and myself. That's not what we need. What we need is to be around fellow Christians. But there is a time when that might not be enough as well. And sometimes we need to decide, hey, we need to go see a counselor, a Christian counselor who believes similarly to us, because there are times that we need that kind of help as well. And we always need to pray to God to assist us. So if you are lonely or alone, man, please think about those things. Please know that you're not alone. If you're not lonely or alone, you will be someday. 1 out of 3 adults in the United States of America complain of being lonely. 10% of college students and high school students say they are lonely every single day. 80% of high school students and younger say they are lonely. 73% of those in the next age range from 27 to 40 say they suffer from loneliness. The pandemic caused loneliness to increase by a factor of 10. And 10% of adult Americans, they have some sort of clinical loneliness that prevents them at times from conducting or doing some very basic life functions. And it's pretty certain the impact of loneliness on us. It increases our mortality. It causes us to die earlier. It causes us to have greater incidence of dementia. It causes us to age more quickly. In fact, chronic loneliness has the same impact on mortality that smoking 15 cigarettes a day or being an alcoholic does. This is an affliction that the devil wants us to have because it also makes us weaker and more vulnerable. But if you're not lonely today, and you know you will be someday, there's a couple of other things to think about as well. And that is, no small deed isn't returned to you. At Oklahoma Christian, one of the things that we talk about every opening chapel of school is you're going to make friends here that are going to last for life, and that's really important. But keep your eye out, because you're going to go into our cafeteria. By the way, our award-winning student cafeteria. It's really good food. The awards are for architecture, but I don't tell people that generally, because the food really is good. You're going to go into the cafeteria, and when you see somebody sitting by themselves, maybe they want to be by themselves, maybe they want you to be with them in that setting. The littlest thing sometimes can make the greatest difference. 1938, a guy named Philip Van Dorenstern had a dream, and it was a very vivid dream. He woke up the next morning and immediately wrote down the story that he just dreamed about. Now, he was a writer, but he realized pretty quickly he didn't write this story very well, and so he put it on the shelf. 5 years later, he took it back out, he worked on it, and he thought, this is a great story. It was called The Greatest Gift. He gave the story to his agent. His agent sent it out to a bunch of publishing houses. And man, the enthusiastic response was consensus. It was crickets. Not one publishing house got back with him. So Philip Van Dorenstern did what anybody, I guess, would do back in 1943. He made 200 copies of his story that he had written, and he sent it out to his friends as a Christmas card. The story, The Greatest Gift, talked about a guy named George Pratt. George had big dreams, but he ended up living in a small town. And those dreams, it seems like, just passed him by. And he thought, man, I haven't done anything that I wanted to do. What a waste my life has been. The greatest gift was, though, he was given a vision of what the world would have been like without him. Well, In World War II, the U.S. military, they would sometimes find small, short, inspirational, motivational stories, and they would print thousands of them and share them with their fighting men and women around the world because they wanted to encourage them when they needed encouragement. This was a story that the U.S. military published for their fighting forces. And there was a guy named Frank Capra who read the story. He had made movies before the war, and he knew he was going to make movies after the war, and he loved the story. And he reached out to a buddy of his, a guy named James. James actually was a hero. He was a bomber pilot in World War II that had just great success. And he said, James, have you read the story? And James said, well, I haven't read the story, but I've heard about it. Well, Capra told him, James, we're going to make a movie when the war is over. And in 1946, It's a Wonderful Life, starring James Jimmy Stewart and directed by Capra, was released. And it's the story of small things making a huge difference in life. So your small things make a great difference. But here's a second story. And this story is actually published in an autobiography of Matthew McConaughey in his book Green Lights. So McConaughey grows up in a small town in Texas and then hits it big on the Hollywood scene. And he talks about, boy, there was more money rushing into his bank accounts than he knew what to do with. His face was on glossy magazine covers. He had movie offers. All these things were happening, and he didn't handle them well. You see, he felt like this success was really pulling him away from his small-town roots of Uvalde, Texas. In fact, he thought these things were causing more temptation and more struggles and more problems for him than he could handle. And he felt like an imposter. This is not me. I don't deserve any of this. Well, he took a turn toward the spiritual, and he began to read some different things. And then he learned about Christ in the Desert, a monastery out in New Mexico. And so Matthew McConaughey had a buddy of his drive him on the highway to where the dirt road leads to this monastery. And his buddy dropped him out, and he began to walk to the monastery. Now, I don't know if he realized this when he was dropped off. It's a 13-and-a-half-mile walk down a dusty road to the monastery. He gets there. He knocks on the door. They're expecting him. They open the door, and they lead him to his small little room with a mat on the floor. And he moves in. The next morning, McConaughey wakes up early, and he meets up with one of the monks there in the monastery. His name is Brother Christian. What a great name, okay? Brother Christian. Brother Christian and he hike for 3.5 hours out in the desert. And the whole time, McConaughey is pouring out his heart to Brother Christian. Talks about his struggles and his temptations, his sins, his mistakes, his lack of confidence. After 3.5 hours, they get back just outside the chapel, and they're sitting on a bench there. Brother Christian has not said a word during the 3.5-hour hike. And now McConaughey is crying and confessing, and he finally comes to the end, and he is quiet. And he knows that Brother Christian is going to reprimand him, criticize him, condemn him for all that he has confessed. And McConaughey feels like he deserves it. And finally, after he stops, Brother Christian looks over at him after 4 hours of confession, and Brother Christian says, "Me too." My prayer for you and my prayer for me is that when we are in the desert, when we are in the spiritual desert of life and we feel lonely and alone and everything is set against us, that we have somebody that will walk alongside with us and hear our story and share theirs and be a friend when we need a friend. And my prayer is that we are that for someone else. The devil wants us alone and isolated and lonely because that makes us vulnerable and weak. And God tells us that we are not alone. He is with us, and we are with each other. Well, this lesson has not been about baptism or repentance or some of those things that we talk about that are so essential in our Christian life. If there's any way that this congregation can serve you or lift you up or pray for you as Dean is coming forward or maybe baptize you to become a Christian, we ask that you would come forward while we stand and sing.
Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, your perfect love is casting out fear. And even when I'm caught in the middle of the storms of this life, I won't turn back, I know you are near, and I will fear no evil, for my God is with me, and if my God is with me, whom then shall I fear? Whom then shall I fear? Oh no, you never let go through the calm and through the storm. Oh no, you never let go in every high and every low. Oh no, you never let go, Lord, you never let go of me. And I can see the light that is coming from the heart that holds on, a glorious light beyond all compare. And there will be an end to these troubles, but until that day comes, we'll live to know you here on the earth, and I will fear no evil, for my God is with me, and if my God is with me, whom then shall I fear? Whom then shall I